You can call Bob Pollock right now, right here at 479-1160 or 349-WCCS. That's 349-9227. If you have a question about yards and gardens and trees and shrubs and flowers or any of those things, as folks are going to be a little bit late getting their gardens in this year, aren't they? We can't get the ground dry enough to work it up.
No, it's been a real challenge. We've had a couple small opportunities to do it, at least maybe get started. Maybe clear the weeds off of it that are growing and love all the moisture, all those seeds germinating. But that can be good in a way, too, because get that flush of growth of those weeds or plants. Now, you want to get them before they go to seed, flower and go to seed. You don't want to increase the seed bank. But that growth, that vegetative growth, can also be used as kind of a cover crop. So let that come up, germinate, and then you can work that in, gain a little bit of organic matter out of it. But also, incorporate, get it before it causes any more problems.
My garden is traditionally very wet, and this year more so than even normal. So I did manage to get it plowed and got all those weeds turned under, but I've not been able to work the soil since then because it's just been too wet. Normally at this time, we would have the cool season plants in, the beans would be up and everything. I haven't even started on the garden yet. And Memorial Day weekend's next weekend.
That's right. Yeah, we'd be pushing, getting past even putting the cool season crops in at this point and starting on some of the summer crops. But we're not there yet, are we?
Not yet. Let's find out what these folks have to say. Good morning.
Good morning. Iris or irises. My concern is I grow beautiful foliage and very nice stately bloom stalks, and then with the wind like it was yesterday, now half of them are laying over. And I wonder if there's anything fertilizing-wise I can do to strengthen the stems on those blooms.
How thick are the stems? Are they as thick as your index finger?
Or bigger? Probably my little finger.
Oh, your little finger. Okay. Yeah, they could be a little bit more robust. Sometimes we just have to stake some of those plants or cage them, depending on the year.
I was hoping to get away from
doing that.
An easy fix.
Yeah, you really, to know for sure what to add there, with bulbs and things, we can overdo it on fertilization, so we've got to be a little careful there. If you put too much nitrogen on, we're going to stimulate too much growth, which may make them even more susceptible to toppling over when we get winds. Or they'll just become, even the flowers themselves and the number of flowers, just like peonies will do, you get those big heavy flowers on the top, and that's enough to have them fall over. So I guess one basic thing we could do to see if we need to adjust the fertility would be to use a soil test, see where we are, and then use the recommendations on there to make any changes that we might need to make. And then other than that, in the soil itself can make a difference there too, just the structure of the soil. So if you have a higher clay content in that soil, that can weaken those plants or cause those, not to have as much leaf growth, as well as the flower stalks being smaller in diameter than you'd like to see them. So just that soil itself and the tilth of it and the organic matter in there, we want to have good drainage, because there could be something just stunting the overall growth of the plant. How's the foliage look?
I thought I heard a click there.
He must be listening. Yeah. Well, so he can look at the foliage
itself. He said it had a lot of good foliage.
Yeah,
pretty foliage.
So that's an indicator that the fertility is about where it needs to be. If you're getting enough growth on the foliage itself, now you can also get, if you're getting too much growth of the foliage, that can weaken the bloom. That those flowering stalks will not be as prolific, and the flowers won't be as prolific
Yeah.
either, because more energy is just going into growing a plant.
You know what happens though? You get frightened of pulling off some of those leaves, those nice, beautiful leaves. You're thinking to yourself, "This is crazy. Pulling this off is not going to help at all." I know what Bob Pollock says about the energy in the plant, but my goodness. 479-1160, 349-WCCS if you have a question for Bob. And
and you mentioned about plowing, and working the soil like that by plowing turns over big chunks of soil.
Yeah.
And makes it uneven. So actually, when you get a chance to do that, then that allows that soil actually to dry out sooner than it would if you just had it left alone and it was level.
Filled it up.
Yeah, so that firm soil in place will take longer to dry out in the spring than a tilled soil. Not rototilled soil, but a plowed soil will dry out quicker and give you an opportunity to get in there.
Let's get another caller. Good morning.
Morning. How are you guys doing?
Very well.
Good. How are you?
I'm good. Hey, I got a question about tilling. You kind of led into this. I went over my garden last Thursday. I went through it 3 times a week ago Thursday, and I got it tilled up pretty good, mine and my neighbors. And since then, I haven't been able to get anything in because it's so wet. And I've gotten a couple weeds coming up here and there, and I was thinking of before I plan of tilling it again, but I wonder if you can actually over-till the soil.
Yes, you definitely can over-till the soil. The more we...
And how do you know that?
Well, the more you break it up, the more it becomes like powder. So when it's really dry and you go in and rototill it, and say you go over it a couple of times, 2 or 3 times, and it really gets very fine and powdery, we've overworked the soil. We want to still be able to have some structure there, because all those little soil particles, if you would magnify that and look at it, you've got all these various sized particles that are somewhat glued together, loosely attached, and we want to kind of keep that kind of a system going. And that's why some people have even gone to no-till, so that we don't break that up and destroy that structure. So you want to not work the soil any more than you have to. And so if you're planting transplants, you wouldn't have to work the soil as much as if you were planting seed. It's because if you get too many clods and bumps and chunks, it's hard to plant the seed and get it planted evenly so that it will be the right depth, get covered with just enough soil to be able to germinate and do that consistently. So we tend to work it more when we're going to be planting seed versus transplants.
So you just kind of watch that it doesn't get too powdery, in other words.
Yes. And then the more organic matter that you've incorporated, either through manures or green cover crops that you've worked in and have that organic matter in there, that helps you because it's that helps keep that structure and makes it a little bit more difficult to destroy the structure on a soil like that versus one that's kind of has a higher clay content. You've not added organic matter to it. If after all this wet weather, if it turns to like a piece of concrete, then we know the structure's not where it needs to be. And even if you're spading your garden, if it is really difficult to stick a shovel down in and turn over clumps of soil, that structure's been negatively affected. It should be easier to do.
Okay, thank you.
All righty. 7:55 in the morning. It's Indiana in the morning.
So those are all ways you can kind of tell what's going on there with your soil, and it is really important. And on a wet year like this, that you just want to, I got to get stuff planted, and sometimes you mud them in, although that's not always the best thing to do.
By putting a board and walking on a board.
Yeah, you could do that. Yeah, or put fabric down, or a few
years ago we had to do that.
Yeah, just so you're not disturbing the soil, and you couldn't have gotten a piece of equipment in there anyhow, maybe.
Right.
So you're just trying to get plants in. And that's where some people have gone to, even in their vegetable garden, kind of a no-till system. But they've had to prepare for that because they've had to get their soil in shape enough that they can grow plants.
Yeah.
Just for the reasons we've been talking about. If you don't have enough organic matter in there, if the soil's compacted like a brick, then that's not good, and those plants are not going to do well in a no-till situation when the soil structure is like that.
Those concrete, or looks like the dried riverbed.
Yes.
The cracks. That's probably not going to be an effective garden for you.
And going to that no-till system can be a way that you can still get things in a timely manner despite the weather, and especially on a spring like this, because you don't need to go in there and till and turn it over and work it all down. You can just set it up, plant your plants. You might loosen the soil a little bit around if you're planting transplants, and just loosen it up a little bit on the top where you're going to make your rows, so you can even kind of, they call it strip tilling, but where you just till in the area where you're going to plant your seed. So you might only do a 6-inch wide swath and leave the other on either side of that alone, leave it firmed up, and then just till that strip, and then that loosens the soil up enough for you to plant your seeds in a row and cover them up and move on.
There you go.
Saves time, saves energy, can work pretty well.
He's Bob Pollock from the Extension. You have questions, you can give him a call at the office. It's Indiana in the Morning, presented by First Commonwealth Bank, WCCS 101.1 FM.